Alright guys, welcome back to Field Trip Science. I'm Marin, and this is our friend, Dr. Steve Levitt.
How's it going?
We are so excited today because normally, as the title indicates, we are out in the field doing field research, but today we're seeing a different side of science, and we're here in a research lab. So this is Dr. Levitt's lab. He is a lichenologist. Dr. Levitt, can you tell us what a lichenologist is?
Yeah, a lichenologist is somebody who spends a lot of time looking at this group of organisms that we call lichens.
And you guys might remember, we talked about lichens last fall, okay? So we've talked about lichens before, but we'll give you a little reminder, a little taste again of what that is.
So we've dedicated our lives to studying this one really small group of organisms. And these lichens, it's a fungus that's interacting with algae that are doing photosynthesis, and they come together to form, I'm going to show you some of these. Check this out. That is a lichen, right?
That was a living thing that was growing, and it's a symbiotic relationship, right? So it's two organisms, or possibly even multiple organisms, living together to create this, what we see here.
Yeah, exactly. So when we say a lichen, it's not like one species, but it's a whole bunch of things coming together to turn into this, right? And they can be big. This is called a green rock shield lichen, or they can be teeny tiny that you can almost not even see them. They can be hanging from trees, stuck on rocks. So it's not like this is the only kind of lichen, but it's just when you have those things coming together, a fungus and something that does photosynthesis to form this brand new thing.
Yeah, and we talked about some of the different forms of lichens last time. You might remember we have ones that look more like this, like he showed us, or we have ones that kind of look hairy, like this one over here. Yeah, we've got some of these ones.
This is called a horsehair lichen.
You can see why.
Yeah, it's hanging from trees. This is in the genus Bryoria, and it hangs there, and people, some indigenous people here in North America, would grind these up and make them into little Cliff Bars and eat them. This one, in contrast, is another fruticose lichen. This is called the wolf lichen. It's bright yellow. Any idea why it's bright yellow? I'll tell you.
Let's
it's
see.
Because it's loaded with a specific acid called vulpinic acid.
Oh, cool.
Right, and that's those acids that give it the color. So this one's green, not because the algae in it that does photosynthesis, but it's green because it's producing this acid called usnic acid that helps keep things from munching on it and eating it away. This one's yellow because it has a completely different acid in it.
And are all the colors of lichens determined by different acids that are in them, or is it other things that can also determine the color of the
Generally,
the
it's determined by the different acids. If you look at this rock here, you can see these orange ones. These orange ones have special acids that are used as a sunscreen.
Ah, very
right?
cool. Keep from burning in the sun.
This one also is the same as the other one that has that usnic acid.
And again, guys, you can see that some of these are going to be more flat, like they're very flush to the rock. Some of them are more kind of leafy, like these ones. We saw the ones that look more branchy. So there's lots of different shapes of lichens, and there's all kinds of species. How many specific lichens do we have in this collection right now?
Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about this collection. As you look around, we have drawers and cardboard boxes and folders.
Binders.
And here, this is where, when we go out in the field and collect specimens, ultimately we bring them all back here. This is called a herbarium. And in this herbarium, we store, house, identify, take care of. We call this curation. We want to make sure that the specimens we collect, they're well marked. We know where they came from, what they are, and especially that we can find them. In here we have over 120,000 individual specimens, and you can think with 120,000 things, you can't just walk around looking in drawers until you find it. They have to be cataloged.
Got to be very carefully organized.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so let me show you what this looks like, right? So every hour that we're out in the field probably represents another 10 hours or 20 hours working back here in the herbarium. So this is what some of the specimens look like. These ones are stored in plastic bags. These are specimens that we collected for assessing air quality. We use these lichens, we'll grind them up, and then we can use some specific chemical tests to see what pollutants have accumulated within these different lichen phalli, or these different structures, right?
Yeah.
So
lots of different ways, and like he was saying, there's lots of different ways that they house these lichens. These are the ones that are just the ones that are air quality, like that you are looking at those. But there's also a ton of lichens over here.
Come over here, let me show you this approach too. So here we have these drawers, and they're on compactors, right? So if you want to store 120,000 things, you've got to store the stuff efficiently, so we can move this around and compact and access the different drawers. And come on in here. So check this out. Here we're looking at specimens, largely that start with the letter S. In each drawer, we have a specimen that has the label of the species, where it came from. We have a barcoding marker. These are all database, so wherever you're at in the world, you can see which lichens we have. And each one of these drawers is just full of dozens and dozens of specimens. And you can look, there are hundreds of drawers in this one aisle. And
there's multiple aisles. Yeah. This is one of the ones that they can look at online, correct?
Yeah, so this is one, there's a website called the Consortium of North American Lichen Herbaria.
And we'll include that in the links, so don't worry guys, you can absolutely look at that.
And you can search what people have and what they found and where those specimens come from. But this is why when we're in the field, that is so much fun collecting these things. But I always remember that each hour in the field represents a whole lot of work back here in the herbarium to get them to this position where they actually are usable to the scientific community.
We're with Rachel Coyler, who is a PhD student here at Brigham Young University. She's going to talk to us a little bit about what she's doing with her time in the Lichen Lab.
Yeah, so I have been a PhD student for 3 years. This is something that I did. I went to college and then I decided to go and do more college and learn more about this really cool organism and learn some tools to learn more about it. And so even though I really love going out in the field and looking at lichens, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get into this, I decided that I really want to know more about their evolutionary history, and that for lichens it's really important to look at their DNA. Their DNA is really what tells you more about what they've really gone through in the past millions of years. And so we look at the fungal, mostly the fungal symbiont.
Come on in. This is cool, you guys. Think about this. These are some of the oldest organisms on the earth. So looking at their evolutionary history is kind of looking at the timeline of the whole world. So this is awesome. So let's come in and look at this.
So here we have, these are each of these are specimens that we've sequenced, and so these are the sequences of DNA, so the ATCG, and so we can zoom in on this program, which I think, even though it doesn't really help me with my research, I like to do this just to remember what I'm looking at. And you can zoom in all the way, and it shows you each of the different nucleotides that it's built up of. And so here we have these lichens, the fungal symbiont, and the sequence that builds it really, and that makes it what it is. And so this is what I use to really understand the evolutionary history that made it what it is today. So it's a lot of fun. And
that's so cool.
Yeah.
No, this is awesome, you guys, because when you think about DNA, this is a recipe. These nucleotide pairs are the exact same ones that are in our body as well. So you can see how, with this recipe being reorganized in a different way, what it creates and the way that these proteins are shaped and how they interact with each other. That would be crazy if all of your DNA mixed around and you became a lichen, right? But it's the same ingredients in the recipe. So this is awesome. This is so cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay guys, I'm gonna let you in on a little Bean Museum secret. We have species here that are still yet to be identified. They're new species that are being characterized here at the Bean Museum.
Let me show you some of these. This is awesome, right? So when I'm out in the field collecting lichens, this is my favorite tool. Do you recognize that? Have you ever seen something like this before? This is a hand lens or a jeweler's loop. These are, you should all go out and get one. They're really wonderful. And you're out in the field and you can look at your lichens with your hand lens, trying to find something that looks interesting or new, right? So you collect a little specimen that looks like this, and you're looking at it with your hand lens, you're like, man, that just looks a little weird, a little bit different. We bring it back here to the herbarium where we can do chemical tests, genetic tests, and we can look at these under a microscope. This is called a dissecting scope. And here we have a camera attached to it so you guys can kind of see what I'm seeing through the lenses of this microscope. This is a lichen that we collected in the Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. This is where Lake Powell is, and we're looking at this and we're thinking this looks completely different. So we collected this, we extracted some DNA from it, we characterized, we took photographs of it, and we compared it to all the known diversity, and we're like, dude, this is totally something brand new. So one of my students, he never dreamed of being a lichenologist. He's working in my lab. He's like, this is kind of cool. I want to help describe this. So my student's looking at this, writing up a description, and now this is a brand new, never described species called Circinaria squamulosa. How do you like that name? Pretty gross, right? That's what we call them, but it's just a cool lichen that we discovered. But that's not the only one. About every time we go out into the field, we can find some new lichens. This is one. I have a number of kids that come out with me, my children. They love collecting lichens, and we're collecting lichens in the West Desert. Look at that, it just looks like a rock, right? There's this weird lichen on it, and my 10-year-old son was looking at that and he says, Dad, this looks like it's something new. Let me show you what it looks like under a dissecting scope. Do you see that little brown thing? That's the lichen. I'm gonna focus it a little bit for you so you can see it a little better. Look at that, all right? So he's looking at that and he says, Dad, I don't know what this is. And he, my 10-year-old son, discovered a species, a new species that we're currently describing from the West Desert. But almost any time you go out and you start looking closer, you're gonna find new things or interesting things. And all of that is just a fascinating part of what we do. Is like, I have no idea what this is. I've spent years and years of my life trying to become a good lichenologist, and I still don't know what everything is. Well, sometimes that's because it's brand new. And that's a really cool thing, is to characterize and recognize something that no one else, at least that we know of, has identified or recognized as a new species. Pretty cool stuff. Let me show you one more. This is one of my favorites that we just found last year. Look at the size of this one. This is called a monster rock Posey lichen. You probably, when you listened to Rachel speaking earlier, this is a group that she studies, right? She's done genomic work with this. Well, last year we went out in the field and we found these monster rock Posey lichens, and these are completely different than any of the other known rock posies. And now all we have to do is describe it, and the whole world will know about this really awesome, brand new species that no one's ever known before.
So guys, the really cool thing about science is that it has so many applications. Do you like reading? Do you like writing? Do you like art? Do you like computers? Even if there's not something that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so passionate about insects, I'm so passionate about birds or lichens, you can go into the field to do those kinds of things. All of these books here, this is a lot of times that a scientist spends researching the specimens that they're looking at. They're reading about what other scientists have wrote. They're writing different research papers. They're writing about the things that they've done and the things that they've researched. They're able to, we saw with Rachel, she had lots of different things that she was doing on the computer. She was sequencing different things. You can even apply things like art. Here we have, somebody made a stamp of a lichen. That's pretty cool right there. We even have, somebody did this for their master's program. So it's higher up in education. After you go to college, you do more college. And they did this where they used lichen to dye different yarns. And that's kind of an application of not only science, but art as well. So no matter what you like to do, there's probably something that you can do it in science, and it'll apply to those kinds of things. So you can definitely consider becoming a scientist no matter what your passions are.